What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the NBA Hardwood show here on the Run Pier Sports YouTube channel. I'm Draft Sheet, of course, joined today by AP and Mangone, subbing in for Mr. JT Hayes. I'm sure he's on some important top secret business that we'll never find out about. But happy to be here talking Friday's 8-game NBA slate. Doesn't feel like Friday. Week went by really fast with all the Christmas stuff, I think. But here we are. Going to break it down for you guys. Let's throw it over to you, Mangone. I know you are on your way home. Is it tomorrow or coming up quick here? You've been gone for a while. I'm sure you're ready to get back home, ready to get back to the grind in your normal setup. But for now, we'll take you in Florida.
Yeah, I'm ready to get back to the normal setup. I will say I'm very much excited too. I was here so long, DC, when I ordered my Easton Stick jersey, which there's not many people that own one out there. I decided to order it to come here because I was like, well, I'll be here long enough. Why not? Maybe I'll wear it on a show or two. So it just arrived today. I don't know why probably the postal service took forever or whatever, UPS, because of the holidays, but it's here. So I'm probably one of the only people that own an Easton Stick jersey, but I wanted to represent. After I told Rubio when we finished our Saber Sim show and I was covering for AP, I said, if Easton Stick wins me a GPP tonight, I will buy a jersey. And I even said, Rubio, I'll buy you a jersey as well. And when it came time, I said, Rubio, what's your address? He said, I don't need it. I said, that's very disrespectful. And Easton Stick is now going to become a legend, and you're going to wish you had.
Let me get the Easton Stick jersey on, because if you remember correctly, I also chopped that tournament along with like 115 of our very good friends for the what was it, like 7,800 or something like that. So listen, I was in on the Easton Stick train. I got a piece of that pie, and if Rubio doesn't want the stick jersey, I will gladly take it. So I'll just I'll leave that there, but maybe it's a Rubio only offer. AP, no Easton Stick jersey for you. No. How are you doing on this Friday?
Doing good. I mean, yesterday's slate was wild. I think we did a good job of breaking it down. I think DC or no, Mangone and Bryce, I think yesterday. I mean, these days are all blended together. It's kind of wild, but we talked up we spent a little time talking about the Pistons and the tight rotation, how Cade was going to have to play heavy minutes. And, it kind of set me up right. It's just the late swap and everything. I mean, kind of tilting in some of these other spots. We thought Ja was going to sit, and he did. And so I had a ton of Bane, ton of Jaren Jackson, and Marcus Smart. But it was a fine night. It was slightly profitable night. So we'll take those. We'll take it. We'll take what they give us, and we'll move on. And tonight's slate looks like a ton of fun, too. It's broken up into two different slates. The main slate ends at 9 Eastern, and then the night slate starts at 10 Eastern. So I kind of like what DK is doing with this. Makes it kind of fun. Two different slates to target.
Yeah, I don't mind it, especially on a bigger slate where we do have 8 games to choose from early, and then you can get back in on a pretty fun late slate if you want to as well. 8 games to talk about, though. Let's get into them. Before we do, reminder, hit the like button. We've been going easy on you guys on the likes for the plays of the day. Today, Friday, we might be a little more stringent. So hit the like button if you haven't done so. It does help us out. Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss any of the Run Pier Sports content. And if you do want to join us in the winner circle, get in the Discord, all that good stuff, we do have a promo code running Andy15. We'll get you 15% off your first monthly or weekly payment. All right, let's get into the first game of the night. DraftKings order of games. They've got Brooklyn and Washington listed first of the 2 early games in the early window. Brooklyn, they've got all their guys in there after Wednesday night. I'll call it bullshit. I think what the Nets did, benching, they benched 3 starters, I think, in the second half. I was pretty annoyed by that. I played Cam Thomas, so paid the price there. But it looks like they've got, I think, everybody back for this game against the Wizards. Nobody wanted to set out against the Wizards. You get that with a 242 total. Brooklyn favored by 6. Washington also going to be pretty much fully healthy here. They get DeLon right back. Danilo Gallinari, the only guy questionable for them at the moment. Start with you today, Mangone. Brooklyn, Washington, obviously a good game environment. What are you looking at here for DFS?
Yeah, as we say, like there's teams that we always have to know. Are they on the slate? Washington Wizards, they are on the slate. So what does that mean? We need to consider options against them. So yeah, we can go back to these Nets. I think Mikal Bridges at 7-3. He's got a little bit of a price decrease in the last time out. Like, I mean, hey, I'm in on Mikal Bridges at 7.3K. I think it's a pretty good spot for him. Like the price, Cam Thomas, same thing there. I think you make the case for him. I think he has upside in this matchup. Dinwiddie at 7-1. This is the infamous Spencer Dinwiddie hates Kyle Kuzma matchup, right? Like those two used to play together, and it came out that Spencer Dinwiddie said, like, I mean, I don't have like the word for word answer, but he basically said, like, for the most part, I go out there and compete. You know what I mean? Not a lot of guys I hate though. That dude, though, Kyle Kuzma, he does not like him. So, and it feels mutual for Kuzma. They've had Twitter beef. So that should be a fun little narrative tonight. I will say that might push me to get a little more excited about these guys. But I think it's a good spot for the Nets, right? A lot of guys that have upside. The real question is, I think they're good plays, but how do you feel about them relative to some of the other plays that we might get throughout the slate, right? Like, depending on how the Boston guys play their options, like, whoever's in and out, that could really shake up the slate. And those guys who are in the mid tier could become priorities, like a Derek White between like Derek White or Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, well, if those guys are out, I'm going to want Derek White over him, right? That's going to be important. So yeah, overall, I think there are good options here on the Nets, and I prefer some of the expensive ones. I don't mind Day'Ron Sharpe at the center position. I will say center feels like it's a little more loaded, and for most days it's kind of loaded, but I think there's a lot of different options you can go to in this mid-tier range. And I think Day'Ron Sharpe is in the conversation because obviously we have to love targeting the Wizards here with big men. And then I also think Daniel Gafford, not a bad play on the opposite side. It does feel expensive at 6K, but it does feel like a day where there's not a lot of studs to spend on. And I think we're going to have a little more balanced builds popping up. And I think the 6K Daniel Gafford does have upside still at that price. And then last guy I want to mention on the Wizards side of the ball, listen, Kyle Kuzma is always in play. I just think the upside at the 8K price tag, it's just too good. Obviously the floor can be concerning. You need the game to be competitive, but if he's going to be like 5% or lower ownership wise, I will consider Kyle Kuzma. But one thing I'll say about the slate, like I said, with the Boston news and some of the other news, like I just don't know if I'm going to get there because of that, right? It just depends on some of this news falls out throughout the slate.
Yeah, I think, it kind of depends on when the news comes too, right? Like if we get it before lock, maybe you go to some of these Nets, but for me, AP, it's a little bit hard to lock into these early Nets plays without some of the later news just because they seem mostly fairly priced, right? Which is normally the case, even in a good matchup when a team is fully healthy or close to fully healthy like the Nets are. So I don't know how much I'm going to this game. And as far as your narrative, Mangone, these teams have played twice already. Kuzma and Dinwiddie have not played well in the two games. They're like a combined like 2 for 25 from three. Maybe they're trying too hard out there, trying to show each other up and need to relax and play a ball. I don't know, but at least so far, it hasn't worked out narrative-wise. We'll go back to UAP. What do you see here, Brooklyn and Washington?
Yeah, I mean, 242 total on this slate. It starts in the early window, and when you pull up kind of ownership projections, you're not seeing a lot. And I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of things that Mangone said. And additionally to that, it's the rotation on the Wizards side is just brutal. We've been talking about it all year long. I will say, from a matchup standpoint, this has been a good matchup for Denny Avdia. Brooklyn gives up rebounds to small forwards. Like, just matchup-wise, it's been good for him. He's done well in this matchup as well. But again, what are the risks with him? It's minutes in the rotation. He's losing run to Koulibaly. And so keep in mind that is the risk there with him. I think if you're playing in tournaments, you keep him in the player pool. It's not going to take much to get overweight on a guy like that. So that's my approach. I had a similar approach last night with Bojan. And obviously the game went to OT, but they had to play the Pistons we're talking about. They had to play those guys. Like the Pistons, if they want to win a game, they need a 6-man rotation, and they got to play Cade like 43 minutes, and they might get a win then. But that was a point that we talked about. So matchup-wise, Denny somewhat interested. Outside of that, the other play too, Daniel Gafford, centers have done very well against this Nets team. And one sneaky thing that you could do, strong correlation between Tyus Jones and Daniel Gafford. But again, what are the risks? DeLon Wright, I believe, is back. So again, you could see would I be surprised if Wes Unseld Jr. ran out 11-man rotation tonight for the Wizards? I would not. That's just what the Wizards do. But I'm going to have a few bits and pieces of that. Jordan Poole, 6'9", again. We don't like playing Jordan Poole. I'm not Xing him from the pool, from my pool. If I get a few pieces, I don't know, it's fine. I don't like to play, but if I get a little bit, I'm okay with it. And I actually shipped the 100 single entry with Jordan Poole. So DC, I mean, maybe that's something we can celebrate. It was insane. It took me down a different build path, and he did enough to get it done, which was nice on a weird slate. Kyle Kuzma on the Wizards side is definitely my one fade. Brutal matchup for him. He hasn't done well against this Nets team. Just like when you look at the Nets, a ton of wings, and they can defend guys like Kyle Kuzma very well. So Kuzma, definitely off him. The Nets side, I do think is more interesting. But again, their rotation is somewhat similar to Atlanta in the front court when you look at the bigs there. And I'm talking Nick Claxton, Day'Ron Sharpe. This play could go underlooked, and I think he's an MME play only. I think if you're playing single entry, 3-max, you do want to prioritize news. You want to prioritize some center spots later on in the night. But if you're running 50, or I usually play 50 to 75. If you're doing that or playing 150, consider Day'Ron Sharpe. I mean, he in these easy bigs versus bad teams, he has nuked in 18 to 20 minutes. And I believe he played 21 or 22 minutes last time he played this team. And he absolutely smashed. And it's kind of telling, too, what Jacques Vaughn is doing. I mean, anyone that's somewhat relevant to the Nets, they did not play very much in that last game. Day'Ron Sharpe, we all thought that he was going to play, 24, 25 minutes. He did not. He played 16. So obviously he's a guy that Jacques Vaughn likes. And I have some interest tonight. And Nick Claxton, I would love to play him. But again, it's like that Hawks front court rotation where Nick Claxton could be held under 29 minutes if Day'Ron Sharpe is cooking. So, and then, Bridges, Dinwiddie, all fine plays. I'm setting the standard 3-max rule from any one team. I think this is a good spot on the Nets side. Maybe 2-max, to be honest, on the Nets side. But this is a spot that we want exposure to.
All right, that's Brooklyn and Washington. Jordan is in the pool for Mr. AP over there. Next game on the slate, New York Knicks and Orlando Magic, the only other game in this early window. Low total in this one, or I guess low for today, modern day NBA, 226.5. Expected to be close. Orlando favored by 1. Out for Orlando are Fultz, Harris, Ingles. So a little bit thin at the guard and wing position. And then for the Knicks, just Sims and, of course, Mitchell Robinson. Hartenstein should draw another start here. Let's go back to you, Mangone, for the Knicks and the Magic.
Yeah, I think Jalen Brunson is basically in the conversation on almost any slate at this price tag. I just think at this price, the dude just has upside. That's what I've been saying about Jamal Murray the past 2 slates. I just feel confident with that with Jalen Brunson. Even at that 8.4K price tag, just still has a really nice ceiling. You can make the same arguments for Julius Randle, too, in this range. Again, it seems more of like a safe option. I'm not probably going to play him here. I'd probably rather play Brunson if I had to pick one. I don't mind Isaiah Hartenstein. I do think his usage has been really solid. But the problem is, again, there's a lot of centers in this 5K range, and I just don't think I'll end up getting to him. I think I'd rather go a couple other guys that we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, Isaiah Hartenstein, I think he's in play there as well. The Orlando side of the ball, it's just man, do I want to play Franz Wagner at 7-7 against the Knicks, or go to Mikal Bridges for 300 more? Do I want to play Paolo Banchero at 8-3? I think he's fine. I think he's safe, but I just think there's other studs that I'd rather go up and get. So I just don't see myself playing the Magic today. So for me, I'm keeping it really simple. It's really just the Knicks side of the ball, and it's really considering either Brunson or Randall, probably Brunson more so. And then I think Isaiah Hartenstein is one of those centers that's in the bucket that you should be considering playing today. But that's really it for me. I mean, I'm not saying you can't play some of these guys, but I just don't think at their price, the upside is just that great right now in this spot.
Yeah, I think that all that's fair. And yeah, Brunson just remains, I think, kind of underpriced just from a slate to slate basis for the consistency. And then once in a while he'll pop off for a truly huge game. So yeah, I like Brunson. I think Randall's fine. And I'm with you, Orlando. I don't see a ton there personally. What about UAP? Anything from Orlando and New York for you?
Yeah, so a couple things, and I think this is more like large field tournaments, like the flagship 15 each night. You see, a big part of the community fading the early games to prioritize news, something that we talk about a lot, and it is optimal. It's optimal until everyone starts to do it, which I kind of think a lot of people are, and it leaves some of these spots under-owned, especially a spot like this one. And I've noticed it recently. It seems like last night was a good example, obviously with the Pistons and with the Celtics. A couple other things here. So DC, you actually hit the nail on the head with this. I mean, the Knicks, they have gotten so much worse defensively without Mitch Robinson there clogging things up in the paint. And specifically for power forwards like Paolo Banchero, just going back and looking recently of how power forwards have done against this team. Jalen Williams for OKC had like a career night, 47 DK points. He went absolutely off. Leonard nuked. LeBron James nuked. Giannis had a great performance against him. Pascal Siakam also outperformed against him. The other thing, too, is we have seen a tighter rotation between Franz and Paolo on the Magic side. It's like they have that three-man rotation with their bigs that is just not friendly for DFS. And it's almost like they're rotating the backcourt and front court around Franz, around Paolo to highlight those two guys. And I love this spot for Paolo. I think 8-3, he's going to be very low owned on this slate. I think in tournaments, especially the flagship, get him at you can get 15 to 20% of them. I did that with Tatum last night. Tatum was sub 5% owned, I believe, in the 15. And the reason for that, people prioritizing news, I had 20 to 22%. You're plenty overweight. You're plenty leveraged up with that type of play. And even if he fails, you have plenty of outs too. So that's how I'm played this spot. I like Paolo. I think it's tougher. I like other small forward spots outside of instead of Franz. So I can't get to Franz, but I do like Paolo in this spot. He's the one play on the Magic side that I have interest in. Everyone else fades. And yeah, I agree with you guys with Brunson. Brunson's always going to be in play. Leave him in the MME pool. But I'm not like Josh Hart, RJ Barrett, some of these fringier type of plays I have less interest in. So it's Brunson, a little bit of him, and Paolo as a tournament play is someone I have a ton of interest in tonight.
Yeah, all makes sense. So just a brief aside on the strategy stuff. Like you said, a lot of people backloading, waiting for news. You do see some early game, not kind of lockish plays. Always go, it seems like a little bit under owned. One thing I've been toying with Mangone is just playing, if you just have one or two players from the early games, your favorite one or two, preferably kind of lower owned guys, which they typically are, you can kind of base the rest of your lineup based on how those guys get out of the gate in the first half, right? If you get two low owned guys that are going off in a GPP lineup, then you can just play straight chalk best projected lineup with those guys, right? And if maybe they're off to a slower start, then you need to go different on that lineup. I do think there's some advantage to having some information about your lineup, from the early set of games. Any thoughts on that? I don't know if you should build around a strategy like that, but it does seem to be helpful when I kind of stumble into it. Any thoughts there, Travis?
Yeah, I don't think every slate is able to do that, but I think some slates you stumble into it, like you said, where it's and especially when you have a lot later games and you've gained enough information. If I know, if I have a guy that I know is let's say it's a chalky option that I know is struggling a bit and he's not going to pay off his tag, I might make a pivot from the 60% owned stud that everyone's playing that's really good like if it's like an Anthony Davis to a LeBron James for $200 less at like a third or, a fourth of the ownership, right? Like, I don't think that's a bad thing to do. I kind of considered it the other night with the AD to LeBron thing, but it just didn't make sense for me too, because I was in a fine enough spot. But I think it's something you can look at. I wouldn't build around it, right? But I think if you're playing like, a couple teams where like you're playing like a single entry team, I think at times you can make an argument for it for sure. So I definitely would not ignore that idea, just because some of these studs can just like nuke and just like win you a slate. Like if you have like a 4% guy that goes for like 60 plus at like 8.5 or 9K, like it's just a massive thing that can really set you apart from the field.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been trying to even just like, if you have like two kind of like mediocre-ish plays and you can no longer really contend for the top, sometimes the thing to do there, I think, is just to lock in the highest projected lineup and try to sneak in the min cash line, right? I mean, there's something to be said for that too. So I think there is just you can kind of base your decisions based on how your lineups get started. Nothing groundbreaking there, but a fun, interesting discussion, I think. Let's go to the 7:30 games. There are 3 of them on this slate. First one we'll talk about is potentially the game of the night for DFS purposes, depending on what Boston ultimately decides to do. We do already have both. Well, Al Horford ruled out. Porzingis doubtful to play. I assume, we assume doubtfuls are going to be out there and out 90% of the time, it seems like. But then questionable is 3 of their other starters. Jaylen Brown, who missed the last game, Drew Holiday with an elbow injury, and then Jason Tatum is at left ankle soreness. All of those guys are questionable. I doubt, we'll go to you first, AP, on this one. I really doubt that all 3 of the Boston, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Tatum, sit out. My guess is they're kind of just waiting to get closer to game time to see, who among them feels the best in terms of playing tonight, and then maybe they'll rest 1 or 2 of the others. But obviously, even in not a perfect matchup, certainly against Toronto, Boston has to be in play. They already are with Horford and Porzingis out, but if 1 or 2 of Tatum, Holiday, Brown, or God forbid all 3 miss, could be a lot of Boston, a lot of green in people's lineups early. Boston is favored by 5.5 in this one, which again, I think suggests that these guys are kind of more on the probable side overall. 225 total. Boston, Toronto. What do you see, AP?
Yeah, I mean, going to OT with the Pistons last night.
All the guys played like 44 minutes.
Yeah, Drew Holiday I think it's a spot where Holiday could rest. I mean, the last back-to-back he had not too long ago, it was a road trip, Warriors then Kings. He did play, but it does seem like a spot where Drew Holiday could sit. I think Jaylen Brown almost has to play. I'm hopeful. So we talked about the early window, and my hope is we get this Boston news, because obviously this is news that you want to prioritize. I think we get it before those games lock up, so we should be fine. But yeah, this is obviously priority on the slate. If Tatum, Andrew Holiday sit along with Horford, who's already out, Porzingis doubtful. This is going to be a spot that you're going to want pieces from. I mean, Jaylen Brown is going to, and Derek White are going to have to carry the load here. And I like that their price tags are up. Maybe it caps ownership a little bit. This game could go a few different ways too. I mean, let's just say if they play, I would have some concerns with Keita at 4-4 potentially in this matchup. We've seen Toronto. They have this lineup where they could shift Siakam to the 5, get Pirtle out of there, and bring Schroeder off the bench. And Schroeder off the bench was actually a pretty nice move for Toronto. The stats a little bit inflated there. Obviously, their last game against a bad team, but I didn't mind that move. Scotty Barnes at 8-9, or Scotty Barnes last game just absolutely nuked. And the other thing too is don't forget about the other side of this game. If a lot of these guys get ruled out, this game is still in Boston, and it's going to stay close. Scotty Barnes at 8-9, I think that's a very, very fair price tag on him in this role that he is in. I think Scotty Barnes would become a really, really strong play. I like OG Anunoby as well at 6K, and then Pascal Siakam too, someone that you can always go to. Yeah, a wait and see type of situation. Jaylen Brown, if Drew Holiday, Tatum, if both of them are also out, I think you do have to get aggressive with Brown's projection and just to see kind of where it would land. And then we want to see who the starters are as well. So this game, Boston, obviously priority news on the slate that we have to sit and wait for. And we should get it before the first game's lock, I believe, which will give us some time to kind of analyze it a little bit further and help those people out in Discord.
Yeah, the Boston chalk that I fall for too often, Mangone, in situations like this is Sam Hauser, who never seems to come through for me when he's in the starting lineup. 5,200 day, I'm going to do my best to avoid him. But like Peyton Pritchard, if he got the start for Drew Holiday, I think I'd be in on that at 4.9K. Derek White looks good to me. And then, whoever plays, my guess is one of Tatum and or Brown plays, but we'll see. Obviously, if the other's out, I think, who's ever left would be a pretty awesome play. Your thoughts here, Mangone, Boston, Toronto?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't ignore a Peyton Pritchard value. It just depends how this news falls, though, right? Like, so for one, I think Derek White is going to be, I think it's a really good Derek White spot, but also like, it just depends who's in and out. Like, I know it's hard to like really break it down, and I just don't know who to tell you if I don't have the information, right? It's like, and there's too many guys questionable. Now, if they're all out, like it's going to just be a free for all of loading up on Celtics, right? Like and I'm with you, DC. I don't think all of them are out. Like I would be surprised when the news comes in, if it's Tatum's out, Brown's out, Porzingis is out. I would just be surprised if it's like a full on just, tank kind of game. I think you'll get at least one of them, maybe even two. But I don't know which ones, right? And that's going to make it hard to evaluate everything. But I do think Derek White definitely going to be someone that at 7.6, I think you just have to consider at his price. And I hope people don't consider him because I think he's a really good play. Peyton Pritchard at 4.9. I do think just the guy chucks so much that depending on who's in and out, I think he could be an intriguing play that I would not ignore. Neemias Queta, I don't mind him as a center option. Depending on who's in and out, I think that's going to be important. It seems like they want to go him a little bit more than Luke Cornett right now. So I think they're just kind of going with the younger guy and trying to see what they can do with him. So yeah, I think that's how I would lean. Sam Hauser, dude, he's 5'2", right? Like he's not a huge usage guy. He's just he's like to call him a traffic cone, right? He's just a cone that sits in the corner, and doesn't do much else, right? He sits in the corner and you hope he makes those threes. Okay. I'm not hoping he makes those threes. Now, if all those guys are out, and maybe change my opinion on it. But again, I need that news. It's going to be super important. And the Raptors side of the ball, it's worth noting the Raptors did make a pretty big starting lineup change that I think is going to be important for the future. Dennis Schroeder off the bench, right? With Scotty Barnes in there running the point at 8.9K. I just do think this unlocks like some of like these guys' ceilings a little more, like Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam. Like I do think it does a lot more for them. It also helps Gary Trent. Now, I'm not saying we need to do it in this spot, but also if the Celtics are a watered down offense after an overtime game, you could see their defense lack as well, right? If you got Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser on the court with Luke Cornett, I don't think that defense is going to go too well. So point I'm getting at here is Raptors runbacks are not the worst idea, and just keep them in the back of your mind over the next couple of weeks, because I do think as long as the matchups are good and the prices aren't too high, I think their prices could keep going up. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Scotty Barnes next week, 7 days from now was like 9.5K, right? And if he was 9.5, it's because he's had some really damn good performances. So that's kind of the point I'm getting at here with this Raptors team. Don't completely ignore them, especially if some of these Celtics are out defensively.
Yeah, a couple things looking up stuff. Like Derek White's numbers, even with it when it's just Porzingis and Al Horford off the court, really, really shoot up like to a number I wouldn't have expected to see. And obviously, if you take one of Tatum, Brown, Drew Holiday, yeah, Derek White looking like a really strong play. And the Celtics defense, we've seen other teams. We talked about the Knicks. Their defense took a big hit without Mitch Robinson. The other team that we saw have a huge fluctuation in their defense due to an injury recently was the Miami Heat. They lost Bam Adebayo, and their defense cratered. Those are both centers. Look who's out for the Celtics, right? Porzingis and Al Horford, two of their defensive anchors, going to be replaced by either Cornett or a young player in Queta. So this could be a better matchup. And then Drew Holiday, who's one of the best point guard defenders in the entire league. So this could be a much better defense, or much better matchup rather, for Toronto than like the traditional, flowchart type numbers give it credit for. So potentially, if multiple pieces are out for Boston, I think you could see a pretty fun game here. The Dennis Schroeder benching, I do think, opens up Siakam and Barnes quite a bit. So we'll see who sits for Boston. But
I also think, like, if Drew Holiday is the guy that's out, I mean, we got to really like Scotty Barnes, and almost like taking the Raptors side too. I think they're still dogs right now. And like Drew Holiday and Derek White, both very, very good defenders. They can defend 1 through 5. That's not a common thing to have in your backcourt. And that's one thing that makes Boston so good. And if one of those guys is out, like Scotty Barnes is, he's in that point guard role. He's big. That's an uncomfortable guy to guard for a Pritchard or whoever they end up putting in there. I would absolutely love Scotty Barnes, and I think this would become a really good game tonight.
Yeah, this is a really interesting game overall, obviously, depending on what Boston ultimately does. But we'll move on to the next 7:30 game, Sacramento and the Atlanta Hawks. Not shockingly, very, very high total in this one, sitting at 252. Sacramento favored by 1. So obviously a fantastic, high-paced, little defense game environment. Fortunately, both these teams are essentially fully healthy outside of DeAndre Hunter, who's out long-term. Other than that, though, these two teams are good to go. Start with you again, AP, Sacramento and Atlanta.
Yeah, this game's going to be a ton of fun. Very fast pace, a lot of points, 252 total. This one compared to the Nets Wizards one, I definitely have a little bit more interest in this one, especially when we're talking about the studs. Sabonis, like centers against this Atlanta team, they have been so bad, giving up a ton of just like open looks and rebounds to opposing centers. I mean, Sabonis is going to be an absolute nightmare for Clint Capella. Like, I think this is a tough spot for Clint Capella. And I love this spot for Sabonis, 9.7 fair price tag. And then De'Aaron Fox too. These guys, in these spots in close game type environments where you get that back and forth, that's where you want Fox. That's where you want Sabonis. And I want to find ways to get overweight on both of these. Fox and Sabonis, 9.4, 9.7. Can you play them together? Probably difficult. Probably not. And I don't think you need to play them together in this spot. You can just mix and match them basically. And then Harrison Barnes. I know it's kind of gross, but the Hawks also have given up a ton of points to opposing wings, small forwards. Harrison Barnes, a fringe value play. I think he's fine. Outside of that, it gets a little bit difficult. Like the Trey Lyleses of the world, I like to be under on those type of plays. I would rather find a true value that has good usage, that has upside versus a guy like Trey Lyles. Lastly, too, just in a game environment like this one, I know Kevin Huerter, he's losing a lot of run to Malik Monk in this rotation, but this is just such a good spot for him. I'm definitely going to have a little bit of him in my lineups tonight. These high totals, fast-paced type of environments, all he needs to do, hit a few shots early. If he does, he's going to earn himself a little bit more run, and I think he does that tonight here against the Hawks. On the Hawks side, I'm fading Clint Capella. When you look up and you just look at this matchup, Sabonis very good at obviously getting opposing centers into foul trouble. It's the backups that have done quite well, and the Hawks have a very good backup. And Okongwu, who's now power forward eligible, I actually like him. 5'3". I think he gets more run here. I don't like the spot for Capella. They're obviously going to need some size, and the Hawks like to play big too. So I have some interest in Okongwu, mainly because you can play him at that power forward, center, utility spot now. So it opens up quite a bit in your lineups. Jalen Johnson being back, this is a great spot for power forwards as well. 6'3", a fair price tag. He one game, he was back from one game from his after being out, with his injury. He played 29 minutes. Have to think that he plays, 32, 33 here tonight. Fast pace, good environment. I think Jalen Johnson is a fine play. And then it's Trae Young. I mean, one thing that you could do instead of playing like Fox and Sabonis together, you could play these 2 point guards against each other. It's obviously going to be a great game environment for these point guards. But again, it's NBA. We don't have to stack. You don't have to stack at all. That's not a thing that you need to do in the NBA. So a great game to target, one that I'm going to try to find ways to be overweight on.
I can't join you on the Harrison Barnes train, AB, but I did like the Okongwu call. Maybe I'll get in on that one. Mangone, what do you see Sacramento and Atlanta?
Yeah, the only reason I can maybe get on the Harrison Barnes train with you is it's the Atlanta Hawks, and yeah, the Atlanta Hawks are not.
Harrison Barnes is what he's going to get cooking. He's going to get the offensive game going today. No, that's not.
If the Atlanta Hawks don't, I don't know what will. But it's not the craziest idea. So one thing I'll say is like between these studs, like I'm definitely a De'Aaron Fox guy. I would love to get De'Aaron Fox today. One of the problems is I just don't like. I don't feel like it's easy to. And like when I look at the point guard position, I can make cases for other guards like Jalen Brunson for cheaper, Jamal Murray, who I've just been playing over and over and has been great. DeJounte Murray as a guy who has a ton of upside on the opposite side. So I would like to be able to get to 7 o'clock and feel like I have the value to make De'Aaron Fox work. He is someone I will up his projection. And I'll be curious to see how much more I get of him when I do make that adjustment. Because I do think it's a really good spot for De'Aaron Fox. You want to play De'Aaron Fox in those games where you know you're getting that fourth quarter. Like when I was watching Fox the other day, I had him on the night slate and I had a nice team with him. And I said, they're losing to Portland. Hopefully he somehow can play in the blowout. And he played as far as they could let him go, but they still got blown out. But he did kind of get a lot at the end. Dude, if for some reason the Kings are blowing out the Hawks, they probably have 150 or 160 points, right? Like I'm sure it's been an absolute massacre by De'Aaron. So I think either way, he's going to just do really well in this spot. Just the question is, do I have the value to go along with it? So that's going to be a big thing that once I get off the show here, I'm going to try and figure out how can I make this work? Because I think it is something worth looking at. Because I think he has the ability to be the highest scorer on the slate and be very under-owned. So Alex in chat likes Fox too, so I agree with you on that, Alex, that he's one of the best plays on DK. You can make the case for Sabonis is a really good matchup too at 9-7 if you want to spend up at center. That completely flips the build. DeJounte Murray at 7-7. I don't mind him. You could make the case for Trae Young, like AP said. Definitely don't. No argument against that for sure here. But if I had to pick, I rank it trying to get to Fox and Sabonis over Trae Young. If I had to, then I would probably go DeJounte Murray just because of the value that he gets me. Bogdan Bogdanovic pops up. It is a Bogdanovic revenge game. It's definitely not a bad matchup, but it is kind of a pricey tag on him. So he's more of like a last guy in that I kind of fall on that I don't mind, but not a priority. I know the flow chart likes Keegan Murray. I don't mind Keegan Murray in this spot. I think it's another good spot for him, and he's been soaking up a lot more usage. I don't think Keegan Murray is the worst idea in this spot. Atlanta sucks against three-pointer. Like it's just not a bad Keegan Murray spot, and Malik Monk, which is another flowchart play at 5-7. So I want to find ways to get exposure to this game. What I kind of like to do, especially in MME, I'm not MMEing today, but if I was, I would just bump up some of these Kings that I like, just because I know they're kind of hard to get already, but I just think they're worth kind of getting because of the ceiling performances. So that's kind of what I would be looking to do. Try to see if I can mix and match some of these guys on my team. It's also a Kevin Huerter revenge game too, as well. So he's been bad though. So I don't think I can really get there. It's just been he's just not fitting right now in the current situation. I think he's good for this team and he's a good guy for the playoffs and there'll be matchups that make sense for him, but right now it's just not flowing for him. I do like the Okongwu call from AP. I thought that was a pretty good thought process there. Put him at that power forward position at 5-3. That could be one of those value plays that helps kind of make some things work a little bit for me. So yeah, overall, that's kind of my full-on breakdown of the game. But this is a game that like it's just getting under-owned because the pricing, right? And sometimes that pricing just doesn't matter when they just nuke, right? Like, so don't ignore getting like splashes of these plays. I'm not saying play 4 or 5 from this game, because if you play 4 or 5, it's kind of like looking at a game where it's like the Miami Dolphins are playing like the San Francisco 49ers, where everyone is expensive. We're not saying game stack it up and play 4, but I think getting splashes of these plays is not a terrible idea in MME.
Yeah, it does feel like there's going to be 1 or 2 plays that go crazy in Sacramento, Atlanta. If you can get those, you'll be off to a good start because they'll be relatively low owned compared to what the total is in that one. Next game on the slate, Milwaukee and Cleveland. It is Milwaukee favored here on the road, 5-point favorites, 241 total. Looks like the Cavs going to get back Donovan Mitchell. That news just came down while we were on the air. He's missed 4 games due to an illness, so I haven't seen, but I would imagine he might not be full minutes here. Certainly the matchup's good for Mitchell if he is a full go and healthy and all that. I think his return, AP will take out Craig Porter Jr., who's played really well, 6,600 though. Don't think I can do it with Mitchell back. LeVert, Strus, kind of the same thing for me. So Cleveland kind of looks like Mitchell or bust, and I don't know if I'm going to be willing to play him coming off of that illness. Milwaukee pretty much healthy here. Giannis probable to play, should be in there tonight. AP, Milwaukee, Cleveland. Talk to us.
Yeah, I'm probably going to end up putting an over bet on this game. I mean, the Cavs with Donovan Mitchell back. I don't know if this game stays close, which I think it does. I think Donovan Mitchell plays. I think he gets his run. And this matchup is so good. Damian Lillard, Malik Beasley. Obviously, Beasley's role has reduced down pretty substantially of late in that rotation. And a lot of that's due to just how bad he is defensively. And I mean, who was it recently? I think it was Jalen Brunson had some big scores against this Bucks team. So I love the spot for Donnie Mitch. I think maybe we get him a little bit under-owned too, just people a little uncertain about the situation. His usage was insane, those games that he played. I mean, 27, 21 shot attempts, over 30% usage rate, and he's going to have the best matchup in this game, in this spot. So, like, Jared Allen, like, he has been cooking without Donnie Mitch playing. But again, this is a matchup against Giannis in the Bucks, and we know what Giannis likes to do. Like, play. That's why I'm always like hesitant to play. And Allen's not going to be chalk, so this is a different situation. But anytime we have like a chalk center that's like starting against Giannis, I'm always a little hesitant because he just barrels down and is so good at getting people into foul trouble. Even if you look it up, go to StatMuse, type in centers against specifically against Giannis, the foul rate is absolutely insane. It's so insane. I don't think he's in play. There's going to be other value there, but like I would not be surprised if like Tristan Thompson had to come in just to give them support there in the paint. So I do think this is a game. If the Cavs hit their threes, they love to take a ton of threes. It'll keep them competitive. It makes me like the over as well. The one thing too, and it's tougher to play because the Bucks are healthy, but Dame Lillard, that price tag is starting to feel a little bit too cheap. Same with Chris Middleton as well. So these are plays that I think we should have interest in. And, it makes Giannis very difficult to play, but, and obviously we can't play everyone. I think I have Lillard far, far down on the list compared to Donnie Mitch, Fox, and Trae Young and those type of guys. And I have another point guard I have a ton of interest in here in one of the upcoming games. So, and we'll obviously talk about that, but yeah, Donovan Mitchell, and that's about it. I don't have a ton of interest in any other Cavs pieces, and Chris Middleton would be the ideal run back, but again, you don't need run backs, but he would be the guy that I would go to. Fair price tag. He's playing 32 minutes a game now. Positional eligibility as well, shooting guard, small forward. So gives you a lot of flexibility there with Chris Middleton.
All right, that's Milwaukee. Or did you talk about this game, Mangone? I don't think you did. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I got a couple things to say. For one, like AP mentioned some price tags that are getting cheap. Brooke Lopez at 5'6". Like, dude, we can play Day'Ron Sharp at 5'1" or like Brooke Lopez at 5'6". Like, just like saying that out loud is just, I don't know. It's, we know what Brooke Lopez's upside is. You know what I mean? Like, Jared Allen, what is Jared Allen going to do when Brooke Lopez is out at the 3-point line? You think he's running around out there with his flat feet to go cover him? Like, I just think Brooke Lopez is a really, really strong tournament play. So I'm very much interested in him. It's also a guy that hangs out towards the basket. And Brooke Lopez, he's a guy that we want him to get those rebounds, right? We want him to be near the basket. One thing I know Brooke Lopez is really great at is boxing out specifically. And he's just going to always be under the paint, not just doing the box out on other guys. So I love this spot for Brooke Lopez at 5'6". He is a tournament play that I want to be overweight on for sure. When it comes to the rest of the plays, I don't mind Chris Middleton. I'm definitely always hesitant about playing him at that 6.7K price tag. Just feels pricey for a guy that the minutes aren't totally always there. But last 3 games, I will say 33, 33, and 32. It's been the Christmas break. I haven't seen him really hit this 30-minute mark until now. It's starting to become interesting. I do think you're not getting that 38-minute game, keep in mind, but I guess it's fine, especially because I do think today is going to be more of a balanced type day, and he could just be one of those balanced guys that you kind of fall on. So Middleton is definitely, I guess, in the conversation the more we kind of talk it through. Donovan Mitchell, I know he's questionable. He will be playing. You don't have to go anywhere else. It's just he always tweets out and he says whenever he's going to play, he sends some stupid tweet like lock in or ready to go, like one of those. Like he sent it today, right? He sent the tweet. It's out there, and it always happens. It's just the truth. And he did it when he was in Utah too. I noticed this when it was in Utah way back in the day, and no one was really reporting about it. There, one day I just saw he didn't tweet it out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take note of that. So don't worry, Donovan Mitchell is in. So I'm not really looking to play many Cavs, but I just do think we've gotten some just cheap price tags on the Milwaukee side of the ball. And I agree with AP on the Damian Lillard idea, but like I just like Brunson and Murray and those other guys better. And I'm only doing one team today since I got to be up early in the morning tomorrow. So I don't know. I probably won't get the Dame, but I do think Brook Lopez is the guy that I'm really considering in tournaments as a center that has really good upside in the spot.
I like the Brolo call. I think he's got a lot of things going for him in this game. So I might join you on the Brook Lopez train. Let's stick with you, Mangone, for Philadelphia and Houston. 224 total in this one. I think the lowest total on the entire slate. Philadelphia favored by 1.5. Pretty big injury news on both sides. For Philly, Joel Embiid going to miss another game. It's been kind of surprising. Tyrese Maxey hasn't really nuked too much with Embiid out. Maybe this is the day he gets going, but certainly not a great spot for him or the rest of the 76ers. And then on the Houston side, Dylan Brooks still out and Jabari Smith also going to miss. Tari Eason questionable to play. I think he's on the more probable side of the questionable. He's been kind of listed with the same injury the last 2 or 3 slates. He's played pretty well and played decent minutes, and I don't really think there's been a re-aggravation or anything. So I do expect Easton to be in there, but he is listed questionable. I bring it up because he's an interesting play with both Brooks and Jabari Smith out. Mangone, talk to us, Houston and Philly.
Yeah, he was my play of the day the other day at that 5-6 tag. It didn't really get there. It didn't kill me. What was no play of the day worthy, but I could go back to the well. It is pricey at 6.3, but I do think we're just struggling with value. And if you fall on him, kind of like the Middleton thing, I wouldn't hate it because I do think his length is going to be needed against the way that the Sixers have all this length with, the Tobias Harris. They just feel like they play all these like lengthy guys, like, and they go a little bit bigger with their options at the 3, right? Like, so I do think that Tari Eason is in play. The big thing to talk about on the Philadelphia side of the ball. So price tags have gone up on these guys, right? And at some point, the price is too high. Now, on Maxey, I've said it from day one. Maxey is $9K. He has to do a ton to pay off his tag. I do not prefer him. I like the other Sixers more. I know on FanDuel, I believe he's like $8K or even cheaper. I think Maxey he's just a bit pricey where I want to play some other guards that I talked about. Like instead of Maxey, I would try to play De'Aaron Fox instead. I'll get my Sixers exposure in other spots, right? I'll get it to DeAnthony Melton or Kelly Oubre. I think both those options are really interesting plays. I lean Melton over Oubre if I had to pick, but it's not a strong lean. I think Melton's looked like the better option, but I wouldn't be surprised if it flips today, right? I think you could look at ownership to help you make that decision and just kind of like go from there. They're very similar prices. The $300 might matter. The best option on the Sixers, in my opinion, is Tobias Harris. When Embiid is out, it's Tobias Harris's offense. And that has probably maybe been some of the reason why it's hurt Maxey a little bit because the offense isn't running through Embiid. And I don't know, maybe just what happens is when they play with Embiid, Tobias Harris is more of a corner shooter kind of guy, right? And yeah, he gets his usage when Embiid's off the court and has his opportunities, but when it's just that Maxey and Embiid pick and roll show, well, it's like, okay, Tobias just gets stuck in the corner and does what he can. It's a good spot for Tobias still at the price. 6'8", I think he's the Sixer I would definitely want to have here. Big conversation point is what on earth to do with Paul Reed, because Paul Reed is a guy that if you tell me I know he's going to play 30-plus minutes, I'm in. Even probably like 28, I'm probably in. My big concern with Paul Reed is the fouls. And, dude, he's playing against Sengun, right? Like, this is not an optimal matchup for Paul Reed. Like, it just, part of me feels like an idiot if I play Paul Reed and then I see him get 2 quick fouls on Şengün. I'll just be like, I knew this was going to happen. Like, what were you doing? Like, and he's going to probably have ownership. Again, I think he's an elite producer, but it's definitely a huge, like, I talk about big decision points on the slate of what you're doing with a certain player. I think Paul Reed is a big decision point because I think he's a chalky play that you could fade and really benefit from, or you can get absolutely buried. I think it's a huge conversation on this slate. So I am leaning more on finding other options at center just because I talked about liking Brook Lopez, right? But I do think Reed, obviously elite producer, if he gets the minutes, he's going to crush. I will say the matchup too. Houston is not a good matchup, right? This team plays at a slow pace. This is not a team that we're like, oh, it's the Washington Wizards, fire them up. Like, so it's something to be cautious with a little bit. So that's one other thing to think about when it comes to this team. But yeah, and then on the other side, Fred VanVleet, another one of those spends I definitely would not totally ignore. I think there's better spends at guard, but if MME, you kind of fell on him, I wouldn't hate it just kind of know what his upside is at the price. I think Şengün is a better play for $500 more. I think Şengün could absolutely eat in this matchup at 8.4K. So I definitely think he is one of those contrarian spends that you can look to get to. I know they're missing Brooks, right? So we could have some value here, especially if somehow Tari Eason did miss. But there are some values here I think you could mix and match in here if you're really struggling to find them. Like you could go to like a Jae'Sean Tate. He certainly could get some run. Like an Aaron Holiday. That's if you're going real stars and scrubs, right? If you decide to go a Nikola Jokic route, sure, there might be some options that you could mix in there on Houston, but I would be cautious with them because overall, they don't have huge ceilings at their prices. They just feel like guys that are going to play between like 16 and 22 minutes and might find a way to limp their way there.
Yeah, I'll stay away from the Houston scrubs myself. Running the numbers with Jabari Smith and Dylan Brooks out, the big usage bump is weirdly, or maybe somewhat weirdly, to Jalen Green, who this is pretty crazy. 130 minutes played with those two guys off the court this year. Jalen Green is a 41% usage rate, which is just wild for him. So he's expensive at 7,400, but nobody's going to play him. I know there's been kind of the controversy with the playing time recently, which will just reduce his ownership to like literally zero. So he's the guy I'm looking at AP because I do think he's going to get the Maxey matchup. I think Melton will be on VanVleet, and I think that will force Maxey to guard Jalen Green. Kind of a lack of rim protection for Philly as well. So, yeah, I might get a little weird with a Jalen Green type play, maybe Eason as well. But Tacos AP, what do you see? Philadelphia and Houston.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more intriguing games on the slate. You know, we know what Philly's doing right now. They're basically forced to run a tight rotation. These guys are getting a ton of minutes. Tobias Harris, I mean, Mangone, absolutely hit the nail on the head with the analysis there. I got one thing. I want to start with the bigs here. I love this spot for Şengün. We got no Embiid. Philly, when Embiid is in, very, very good against opposing bigs. Very different situation here with Paul Reed and Mo Bamba. So it's going to be a great spot for Şengün, 8-4, fair price tag. Absolutely love him. All right, so on the debate between Paul Reed, because I actually played Paul Reed last game, and it was like he went from mega chalk and busting as mega chalk due to foul trouble to then he was like 14% owned and absolutely nuked in a spot where he playing Orlando. He's from Orlando. They let him cook. I think Mo Bamba got hurt a little bit too. He's fine, but that led to some extra run there for Paul Reed as well. But your box score lurkers are going to look at that, and they're going to go right back to Paul Reed. He's projecting to be chalk again. And I got something for you. So starting centers against the Rockets, it is a brutal matchup. And you're talking fantasy points, like one of the six toughest. And but when you look at reserves, so the backup center against this team, and Mangone, you were alluding to this, dead last in the league. Why does that happen? It's because of Şengün. It's because of foul trouble. Leads to more opportunity for that backup center to get more run, to get more production. And this is based off of their price. So that is all obviously factored in. I think it's a Mo Bamba night. I think it's a Mo Bamba night. Yeah, you got to zig. So everyone's going to zag back to Paul Reed. We're going to zig back to Mo Bamba. That's what I'm doing. Now, I might in MME. Yeah. I mean, in MME, am I full fading Paul Reed? No, I'm not full fading him, but I'm definitely under projecting him, and I'm over projecting Mo Bamba for that situation. And it's not going to take too much to have a pretty significant change versus where the field's going to be at. So that's my approach there. Tari Eason. The other thing too is Ime Udoka. I think it was pretty telling. I mean, he wants to run a tight rotation, and against the Suns, it was a blowout, and so put the scrubs in, and that was that. But now with another piece out, and I think we're like these starters. We want to know who the starters are. We think it's going to be Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Tate, Tari Eason, and Shingu. That's who I think it is.
Yep.
I think those are the guys that I want to overproject from a minutes standpoint. I want to be aggressive with their minutes because I think the Rockets, I think they win this game at home. They've been very good at home. The Philly, great win in Orlando, but man, Orlando played terribly. Like Paulo was horrible. Franz was missing shots. I'm going to overlook that, and I'm going to go back to Philly struggled when Embiid is out. So I think it's a great spot for the Rockets. But I think the game stays tight, and when it does, you're going to get a lot of minutes. A tightish rotation is what I'm predicting from the Rockets. So Jalen Green, that's an interesting mention.
Get on board. Join me on the Jalen Green train.
I mean, no one is going to play him. And a lot of it has to do with the price tag. The price went up for some reason. DK does this. Who knows why? But again, like the usage was insane. If VanVleet gets the tougher matchup, that's going to obviously be good for him. But Tari Eason, I think, is our guy. I think it could be, assuming Tari Eason's in. This is a dude that recently, like 2 weeks ago, put up a few weeks ago, put up a 49 and 42 piece in like 26 minutes against the Spurs and then Memphis. But I mean, still, it is. I think it's a Tari Eason night. I want to be aggressive with him as well. So this game is intriguing. It's one that I want to mix and match and figure out different ways to get overweight on. I do have some concerns with Melton. He's just been so efficient. He was highly efficient against Orlando. And he benefited too. Tyrese Maxey had 2 quick fouls. So a few things. Tyrese Maxey, 2 quick fouls. That led to Pat Bev getting more run in the first quarter. I was watching the game, and he did most of his damage in the first quarter there, and it led to more production and efficiency from DeAnthony Melton. I'm not fading that. I'm just saying I don't think he's a lock button type play. I think he's a play you get in line, maybe even slightly under the field, just because regression hits everyone. And it just feels like he's due for one of those games where he underwhelms and people are tilting him. I mean, against Orlando, which again is a tough matchup, 36 minutes, 35 DK points. You wanted to have him, but look at it. He was 8 for 13 from the field, made all of his free throws. The peripheral stats, he only had 1 assist and 5 rebounds, and 2 steals to go along with that. So DeAnthony Melton, the one guy I'm a little bit cautious on in this spot.
Mr. K. Fallick coming in, hating on the Jalen Green play. Never comments on our show, never says anything, never shows the support. I mentioned 0% owned Jalen Green play, and here's Kevin Fallick coming in.
Tell me what an idiot look, like the NBA is all switching. Like it's still like you rarely ever see like an individual one-on-one matchup like all game anymore. It's switch, it's constant switching, and that's today's NBA. So
I also think there's a good chance Melton's going to guard Fred VanVleet anyway. But anyway, we'll move on and to the next game. What is there? 2 more games to talk about, both in that 9 p.m. Eastern time window. OKC and Denver are up next. The Nuggets going to be without Aaron Gordon, a dog attack. He's going to be on the bench, and feel bad for Big T's family. I mean, we get.
I was laughing at K. Fallick. I was not laughing at the dog attack.
Well, now Big T's out. He's not going to get a dog for his 4 family because Aaron Gordon got attacked.
Hey, if there was ever a sign, Big T, if you're watching this, if there was ever a sign not to get a dog, that is it. That is the universe telling you should not have a dog. So I'll just say that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think the dog.
Even though I love dogs, so.
All right, we'll leave it at that with the dog stuff. But Michael Porter Jr. also questionable in this game. If he's out, obviously that's the 2 front court guys for Denver would open up some minutes there for sure. And then OKC looks like they are healthy and ready to go. We'll start on big T's in the chat. Good. We'll start with you, AP, on this one. Denver and OKC. What do you see here?
Yeah, I'm kicking myself. I was actually underweight on MPJ relative to where the field was at yesterday. I wish I would have gotten a little bit more aggressive on that. I know it was a nut spot, but look, Jamal Murray and Jokic, they had their 2-man game going. It was just so elite. I think we're going to see it again tonight. I already have a bet. I mean, the Nuggets just pounded the Grizzlies, Memphis. And, they played, 25 minutes apiece? I mean, it was not close at all. I mean, Memphis is, without Ja out there, Memphis sucks. They are horrible. They need him to play. And I think it's going to be Jamal Murray. It's going to be Jokic. So these teams have played twice. They split wins. And the last game was in Denver. It was much closer. Jamal was just coming back. He only played 25 minutes. And I think he missed, all of his shots from range in that game. He was 0 for 6 from 3, 5 from 13 from the field. I mean, he was horrendous. And it was a 1-point game. It was a 1-point game with Murray playing 25 minutes. And I think the Nuggets get a win tonight. I think it's going to be a big win. I like their side. And I think it's going to be Jamal Murray, Jokic, 2-man game. And then, Peyton Watson, obviously going to slide in there. But again, I'm a little worried about every peripheral piece from the Nuggets, because when those two get going, Jamal Murray and Jokic, with Peyton Watson, he's 4-5 now. He's not in the 3K range. So that does bring in some extra risks. So it's Murray, it's Jokic. And on the other side, Shea is always in play. The guy is just incredible, but I don't like this matchup as much for him and playing at altitude. And they do need size, so Shet will get more run. Giddey, I saw, was popping in optimals, and I have no idea why. He's been terrible. OKC runs one of the widest rotations, one of the most random rotations that we see. There's no way I'm playing projected early chalk Josh Giddey on this slate. So I'm definitely under on the OKC side in this spot.
Yeah, makes sense there. And pretty incredible spot for Jokic here at home, which we like. No Aaron Gordon. He gets a bump there, I think. Mangone. Just 11.2 is a reasonable price point for Jokic. So certainly if you can fit him in the lineups, which I think you can tonight, given the value, he's an awesome way to go. Talk to us, Mangone, OKC and Denver.
Yeah, we're also, when do we get this news, right? We're going to get the update more than likely at 7:30 Eastern, because it's a 9:00 game. I do like playing Jokic in the competitive games. It's going to be really hard to get Jokic today. So one thing, if you want to play Jokic, just hit the lock button and then run the optimizer and see what happens, right? Just don't run 5,000 simulation. Just see what you get, just to
understand what Jokic teams do. What are you not getting with the Jokic team versus just a base build? I think that's a really important thing to kind of do. Jokic is, if I can afford him, great, but it's definitely going to be tough too. And it depends on how the news falls. I know we did just get news on the Celtics that Tatum and Brown remain questionable, I think. And then it was Porzingis remains doubtful. So that's the news we're seeing.
We got no update at all. I don't know what the update was. All the same guys are.
Yeah, but the key is we got an update, which that means we might be sitting around and we don't know when we're going to get this news, right? The point I'm getting at, DC, is it's not we're going to get news 5 minutes from now, right? The next update we might get probably won't be for 30, 40 minutes if we get one. So it's that's kind of frustrating for sure. That's going to definitely leave us scrambling with content and everyone's scrambling with trying to figure out teams and everything, depending on how that news falls. So it's just worth mentioning that you got your update. I'm not saying it's good, but you got the update, whatever it is. But I think overall though, I love Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, I just think is way too cheap. I think he should be 8.5 or 8.7 in this spot. I just think he's too cheap. So I love Jamal Murray. He's one of my favorite plays on this slate. OKC side of the ball, it's really tough to just play many of these guys because they spread it out so much. They mix and match based on the matchup. And so I'm not really excited about any OKC options. I definitely don't mind Watson as a cheap value. I do think he seems pretty safe. I'm not saying he's someone that's going to, carry me to victory tonight, but I just think he's a safe value. And you could make a case that they might need a Christian Braun, right? And if they need a Christian Braun at 4.6, I don't like mixing and matching him. If you're MMEing, I think up in Christian Braun's projection and getting a splash of him, not the worst idea. Because then they could use his versatility against this OKC team that they seem pretty versatile, right? Where just when it comes with the ball and everything, where you want guys that can play both ways and be able to actually move. And Christian Braun can at least move a little bit.
All right, that's OKC and Denver just laughing at Kevin in the chat, getting spicy today. I think K Fallick might be hitting the nuts tonight. He's feeling it. You can tell by the chat comments. Last game of the night, Charlotte and Phoenix, or I guess last game on the DK main slate, Charlotte and Phoenix. LaMelo Ball remains out. Mark Williams doubtful to play. He's likely to miss this one, but Phoenix will be with their big three. Booker, Beal is going to play, and Kevin Durant all healthy and ready to go for this one. Big spread. Phoenix favored by 16 over Charlotte, 231.5 total. I don't see a ton here, AP, to love in this last game of the main slate, but talk to us. What do you see, Phoenix and Charlotte?
Yeah, one thing the Suns need to do with all of like the firepower that they have on offensively, I've always thought that they should play with a lot more pace. We did see that last game. I have an over on this game. I think it hits easily. I think on the Charlotte side, there's not going to be a lot of defense. I think the game blows out. So that does a few things. One, with kind of the big three, if you want to call it that, with Bradley Beal. I mean, it really makes Booker and KD unplayable. And then, we love bigs against the Hornets, but Nurkic, they're going to be cautious with him, very cautious. Udoka Azubuike is going to be the guy, I think, tonight. I think he's the guy that he got run over Metu and over Drew Eubanks, who is freaking cheeks. I think Azubuike 3.8 is, if you're playing tournaments, keep him in your pool. Even if he doesn't get a lot of run, I just don't see how this game stays close. He's going to get, you would think he would get some blowout run there too as well. So, but he has been in that rotation over Drew Eubanks. Metu's the guy that I have no idea about, but I do think it's going to be Azubuike. I have a ton of interest in him. 3.8, interesting tournament play, value play. I don't see how you play any of these Hornets guys. They suck. They're so terrible. And they played what? I think it was, got to check my notes. They played 12 dudes yesterday in a blowout loss to the Lakers. And now they got to go play a Suns team that's motivated just to pound teams, because obviously the Suns have been struggling. It's a perfect get right spot. And Grayson Allen, I'm not playing him tonight, but this dude has been lights out from deep. I mean, I think he's got, like, right now one of the highest 3-point field goal percentages in the NBA. It's insane what he's doing. So I think if you're a buyer in stock, you can buy the Suns at a low price right now, and I think they start to trend in the right direction.
I don't know how I can get admonished for a Jalen Green recommendation, and AP's over there getting away with Azubuike coming off the bench.
Oh, look at the rotation. Last 3 games, he's been in there over. Oh, I mean, he's gonna smash tonight. Azubuike.
Azubuike. All right, man.
Is that even how you say his name? I have no idea.
I'm going with it. We're certainly not going to ask Travis to give us an update on Azubuike. He's rolling with our pronunciation as well. Besides Azubuike, Mangone, what do you got for us, Phoenix and Charlotte?
Yeah, I don't have much, man. This game sucks. So, I think I'm out on this one. I don't really have much else to say.
All right. Well, that was quick on
Phoenix. Again, can I one thing. So Azubuike, last game against the Rockets, first man in, 5,000 that game, first man in the first quarter, and then closed the second quarter, and then was in again in the third quarter. But he was only limited because of the 5 fouls. And when the game was just the game was toast. It was done. He got the 2 minutes of blowout time. So there you go. Azubuike should just be like my play of the day. Who knows?
Well, everybody's chiming in on Azubuike. We got Big T. You're going to be going to Gummyland early if you play Azubuike. And but Holden is
3.8K. I gotta play Jokic. I gotta play these studs somehow. I mean,
if you guys all play chalk ball, that's the way to get him in. I will say that. Like, it's we have people playing Peyton Watson on this slate and excited.
So I guess I don't understand the 10-minute, like the 10-minute projection in this spot when, like, so why is it that much different? Why was he the first man in? When Nurkic went out. Obviously, they're being very cautious with Nurkic. this game's going to be a blowout. There's no way, like, we're not going to see a pit. Dude, this Hornets team is way worse than even the Pistons right now. They are terrible. Like, they are so bad. So I digress.
I would probably project him for like that like sweet spot of like maybe like 14 where like he won't hit anything, but like you could go back and be like, well, his projection wasn't bad. That's probably, if I was doing the projections, that's what I would do. And he probably has a better chance of playing him blowout too. But to be fair, like the Suns have sucked this year as well. And I don't know, could Charlotte play small? Maybe. I mean, I guess they could play super small and maybe the Suns kind of lock, but I don't know.
Like, people, this is a multi-entry tournament type of play, based off of a game script that I think is highly likely to pan out, and a matchup-based thing as well. Like, bigs have destroyed for years, and this is no comparison to Peyton Watson. That's completely different. So, and their prices are way different as well.
You've sold me. I've already joined the Thunderdome, and Azubuike is locked. So, we're good to go.
All in. I've already mortgaged my house.
Yep. I got the Thunderdome
that's my credit cards. Yeah. All in on Azubuike.
There's going to be a lot of pours in the chat come Monday, playing the Azubuike train. I don't even need to look at the likes. We're doing the plays of the day anyway, because I'm going to go first, and I got to stick it to Mr. Kevin Fallick. I'm playing Jalen Green as the play of the day. Matchup with DeAnthony Melton. Be damned, 40% usage rate, going to get it there at 1% ownership. Jalen Green, Mom's basement play of the day. Let's go to UAP for the gentleman's play of the day.
Yeah, I'm not going Azubuike.
Oh,
I'm not going any back. I'm not going any back. No, I'm not going Mo Bamba. I'm not. These are, we're talking through this. It's talking points. To add to the content here. Paulo Banchero, 8.3K. I love the spot for him. Knicks have been, the pace is not good, but the pace is never good with the Magic. The pace has been better, though, and defensively, it's been a much better spot to attack. Paulo, 8.3. I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him. My play of the day.
All right, we got Paulo. We got Jalen Green. Mangone, what do you got for us? Play of the day.
So I'm going to go with Brook Lopez. I think his upside is just way too good at 5.6K. I think there's a lot of centers you can play between 4K and 6K, and I'll take my chances on the guy that puts up 40 DK points while there's a flat-footed dude that doesn't like to leave the paint. So, on the opposite side. So give me Brook Lopez, 5.6 as my play of the day.
All right, love it. That'll do it for this show. We do have, for members, the Up to Lock show, JSU, Holden, Big T, going to take you all the way up to lock, talk about the Celtics, I'm sure. Maybe we'll get that news during the show. For members, head on over to that. If you're not a member and you do want to join us, promo Andy15 will get you 15% off your first payment. That will do it for AP, for Mangone. I'm Draft Cheat, and we'll check you next time.